How about now? Okay, take two. This is Monday, August 30th. We're looking at 1B. And today I'm not posting a new assignment, but we're going to look at these two guys. The mini project, that's your first assessment grade, even though it's pretty small. I want to get something in the assessment category. And I've got a lot more turned in than 3, but I've been sending them back when I grade it. Some of them I said, yep, you got it, done, and I can put in a grade for that. But a lot of them I said, oh, let's change this one thing. Let's fix this one thing before we call it done, because that grade counts for more. So also, by the way, don't forget this form. If you got one of these guys, I'll take it. If you want another, you can grab a physical one from me or print it from here. And then today we're going to look at another example maybe from this looping unit in the CodeHS. So by the end of the week, both of these will be graded. You'll have an assessment. You'll have another assignment. And next week, we're going to do Unit 6 in CodeHS, which is a really important one on functions. So let's take a look and maybe show going through one of these loop questions. I'm going to go to courses and then click on our thing. I did click, it's just being slow. And here we go. Does anybody have one? Anybody in the room have one you want to click? No? Okay. Well, last time I did a while, so let's click on a 4. And 4 is a similar idea. You have some lines and you want to do them multiple times, but it's with different information. So you might imagine, like, I don't know, one example I saw, one analogy I saw one time that kind of stuck with me was, let's say you've got a family dinner, like a Thanksgiving type situation, and everybody's doing their part. You know, one person's putting stuff in the oven and one person's making dessert, and then you have been assigned to peel potatoes. You're going to peel potatoes so that you can eventually make mashed potatoes. And so, you know, mom shows you, okay, you hold it in your hand and you peel starting from the wrist out to your fingers, and then you turn it and you peel again, you turn it and peel again, and then you rinse, and then you put it in the stack. You're very unlikely to just do one, right? You're going to have to do a bunch of potatoes, but you don't have to learn a whole new thing. You've learned the procedure for doing that, and so if you imagine that as like lines of code, you would loop through that on the second potato, and on the third, and on the fourth. And so how many do you need to do? Well, it depends. It might be like, here's a stack, do it while there's still some, you know, you might have like the fresh ones on the left and then the prepared ones on the right. And so you do it while there's still anything on the left. You keep going until you filled up the stack on the right and you're done because you've ran out. Or you might get an unknown amount. Maybe somebody's just handing you potatoes and you go, you keep going until they stop handing you. Maybe you don't see the stack while you're doing it. Or maybe you need to hit a certain target. Like keep going until you have 5 pounds. Or keep going until you've done 10 potatoes. Or keep going until mom walks by and says, stop, that's enough. So you can have lots of different conditions for when to go and when to stop. But the idea is you're going to do those same lines of code, like, okay, hold the potato in your left hand, move the peel in a certain way, turn it, move the peel, etc., until something's triggered your escape from the loop. So 4 is just another way of triggering that. Let's say, I don't know, let's go to this one. It says exercise, average test score. Why not? Have any of you guys done this one yet? I'm not getting any nods. Oh no, it's giving us the answer. Let's delete that before we see it. Okay, write a program that asks the user for 3 test scores. The program should then report the average. Okay. You'll need to call the input. You should only have one line. You'll need a for loop. And you'll need arithmetic operators. So, all right. The whole point is that they say ask for 3 test scores. So you could say like, you know, test score 1 equals input. Test score 2 equals input. You know what I mean? Like you could just do that 3 times, but that would be very ugly. If we can say it once and do it 3 times, that's great. You don't want to have like copy paste in your code. There's this old rule or this principle called DRY, D-R-Y, and it means don't repeat yourself. Okay, if you can avoid saying the same thing twice, you should, because that's the whole point of using a machine, is that they can save you work and save you time. You don't want to have to do it a million times for each one. So, okay, let's say score equals input, enter a test score, and maybe if we want to be fancy, we could say like enter score number 1, enter score number 2, you know, make it so that it gives us the specific one each time, and maybe we'll do that, who knows. Since we're going to do some math, we would probably want to put int around this guy. And then since we're going to loop, we probably want to say some for something, and then put this guy inside of it with an indent. Okay. When we get our score, we're not going to have multiple variables. We're not going to have score 1, score 2, whatever. We're going to say, hey, take our total, add it to the, you know, whichever one we got, add it, and then keep our total and divide it by whatever at the end. So let's say at the end, let's say average equals total divided by 3. Sure. Now, that might get a bit tricky if we have integers and it's actually decimal. We need to do a float, or do we need to round, blah, blah, blah. We'll decide that when we get to it. But this is our skeleton, right? We're going to get some score, do something with it. Let's say total plus equals score, which means we need to have a total in the first place before we even start, probably. And we just need to decide what is our conditions. You know, like the potatoes, is it do we go until we run out of potatoes to work with, or till we hit a certain number, or till somebody tells us to stop? What's our condition? And this is actually pretty easy because they tell us we're getting 3. Okay, we're getting 3. Doesn't matter what they are, doesn't matter who it is, whatever, we're getting 3. So there are a couple ways to do this. I think the way they tell you is to say range 3. Okay, which means it's going to do 1, 2, 3. Or actually, it's going to do 0, 1, 2. But get, 3 things. So let's see what happens. Score equals int input, blah, blah, blah. Total plus equals score, average, blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to print average. Again, I'm not certain this will work. We might have to do like integer versus float or something. Let's see what happens if we hit run. Oh, it doesn't like it. we might have to say, like, sometimes you have to say a number like I doesn't mean anything, and we're not going to use it in this case, but it's your counter. Like, you could say X, you could say whatever, but I is representing the word iteration in this case. I think it'll work if we say that. Okay, let's say 80, 90, and 100. And the average is 90. Cool. Let's do it again. Let's say we had a 0, and a 50, and a 75. And now we get an ugly one. We might have to add some round or whatever, but it looks like it's getting our default. It's seeing that, like, oh, this is going to be a float sometimes, and that's fine. We don't have to tell it to type or whatever, so that's cool. Let's see if it grades this correctly, or maybe it doesn't like one of the things we did. Because sometimes you run and you get a result that you think looks good, but then the grader says, actually, we were looking for something else. Let's see what happens. Hey, it likes it. That's cool. It was trying specific numbers and looking for specific outputs, so that's good. Great, it worked. Is that the only way to do that? No, there are plenty of other ways to do that, but it's fairly minimal. We could cut some. Okay, we could cut some for sure. Like, for example, you don't really need the score variable. You could just say total plus equals input and just add it into that the whole time, because we're never actually saving each score. But sometimes it's nice to, like, give things a name, even if we're going to use it in the very next line. It's a little bit cleaner to have it one line, but it's a little bit more readable to have it two. And you're fine either way. Not a big worry. Not a big worry. So if we were doing something that involved looking at the individual scores, we might want to save them in a list or something, but we'll get to that later. This video is already long enough, so I'll end it. Today, I'm going to grade some stuff. I'm going to answer questions. By the end of the week, you're all going to have an assessment grade, another assignment grade, and we'll look ahead to Unit 6, which is a big one. Thanks.